Hey guys, welcome back. It's your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with a video type that I haven't done in a little bit, but I have had a few people contacting me about them, and it's that Tales from the Table series that I started not too long ago. And that's where you guys write in, email me at the email in the description, and just tell me experiences that you have had, with whatever game, doesn't matter what it is. And if it's a good story, I'll take and relay it. Now, the one thing that I've noticed is that for some reason, everybody wants to stay anonymous when they contact me, and that's the same trend I've had with everyone who's sent me anything. They're like, I don't want my name getting out there or the specifics. And I think what that comes down to is that they don't want to have their gaming group find the video and then figure out who they are, and then things get potentially awkward, which I can kind of get. And I understand. I wouldn't want to ruin my gaming group either. So I understand the premise behind it, and I will maintain anyone's anonymity that wants to maintain it. It does make it a little bit harder because I can't use names, and sometimes they vague book a few things to kind of obscure the game, I guess. So this story, it is going to have a couple of vague parts in it just to try to protect anonymity. Anonymity. I got that thing from Finding Nemo stuck in my head now. In it, but that's all right. You will still get the gist of the story. All right, so this is actually 40K, which you should have figured out from the title, 40K Problems, but a Baneblade ain't one. Gotta love the Baneblade. Big, huge, awesome tank. All right, so the person who's telling me the story, we're going to call him Bob. Okay, so Bob was at a tournament, and it was a doubles tournament. So Bob had Fred as his partner, and they were playing a set of matches. So the way this worked was, instead of someone bringing, say, a 2,000 point army that they would fight individually with, they brought 1,000 point army instead, and their partner brought 1,000 point, or at least as close to 1,000 as they could get. And the two of them would fight two opponents. All right. So doubles tournament, you bring half the stuff, which I think that's actually kind of neat. You get your partner. You don't have to worry about having as much stuff there on the table. For anyone who's played 40K, you know that crap is expensive as hell. So anyway, they're going through the tournament and they're feeling pretty good about it. Bob has his usual gaming group that Fred's a part of, and they usually have a good time, playing with these people. But there are some new people at this tournament that they haven't played with before. So, they're trying to be friendly and easygoing about things. And during one of their games during the tournament, they run up against super cocky person, and we'll call him Dbag for short. So evidently, before the match even starts, Dbag is talking to Bob and Fred and telling about how amazing his list is and how he's super special and that he's just going to stomp the mud hole in them and just walk them dry because he's awesome sauce and they're not. Now, at first, they're kind of laughing it off because they think it's just the usual banter, right? That people have kind of picking at each other a little bit before a tournament, which is fine. You can rib your opponents a little bit. It's friendly, as long as everybody stays cool, no big deal. So just like many other games, they have an initiative roll, and Bob and Fred won the initiative roll, so they get to decide who basically gets to go first. So when it comes to 40K, there's multiple roles determining like layout of objectives and deployment edges and crap like that to try to keep things fair. But it's a little different than X-Wing. X-Wing, whoever goes first, whoever gets to decide initiative is pretty much all you got to worry about. I like that. It's much simpler. A lot less models to worry about too, plus they're pre-painted. X-Wing beats out 40K any day. So anyway, they win and they get to decide who's going first. And when they say, we're going to go first, which from what I've seen of 40K, especially modern day 40K, seems like you always want to go first. I don't really see a whole lot of reasons why you'd want to go second. Maybe in the new Sigmar stuff, there might be reasons. I mean, you guys let me know in the comments if there are reasons why you would want to go second. But it seems to me, especially in 40K, where you can have some extremely long ranges, that you want to be able to go first so you could put some rounds down range and have a good chance of taking some stuff off the table. Now, before we get into the further part of the story, let's talk about what Bob and Fred are playing. So Bob is running Imperial Guard, and Fred, his partner, is running Space Marines. Okay, so I think it's a good team effort there because Bob brought a handful of Imperial Guard. They're cheap cannon fodder type infantry to kind of hold objectives. But his main thing was tanks. So he brought some tanks and a big ass Baneblade, which is awesome. Who doesn't love a Baneblade? Although I think that model cost something like $500. I don't know. I mean, I guarantee you Bob didn't tell his wife how much he paid for that model. We know you didn't, Bob. And his partner Fred brought the usual assortment of Space Marine stuff. Space Marine squads, some Terminators, some vehicles, the usual Space Marine crap. So that's their team. And they're facing off against Chaos and Xenos. He didn't tell me what type of Xenos. Basically, that just means an alien race. So basically, he was facing off against demons and some type of alien. This is one of the parts that he left vague because he didn't want anyone to stumble across this video by chance. Although, I mean, come on, how many people watch my videos? It's like the odds are rather slim. My channel's small, buddy. So anyway, that's the layout. They've got their tanks and everything. They get set up, their tanks, their space infantry, they're ready to go against the demon alien hordes that are across the table from them. Well, after they got set up and they're getting ready to go first, Dbag is sitting there still ranting on and on about how they're dumb and they're making a bad choice and he wanted to go second and they are stupid and they don't know what they're doing and he's just going to stomp this mud hole in them and walk and dry because all they're going to do is push forward and they're going to put their guys on the objectives, which that's the goal. You want to put your guys on certain points of the board and then you gain points for it. Well, Dbag is yelling at Bob and Fred about how they're dumb because as soon as they move their troops onto those objectives, he's just going to shoot them off and he's going to kill them off quick. And he doesn't want to hear any of their crying or belly aching because they're the ones that decided to go first. So they lost the match for themselves. Guy kept bragging about how he had so much firepower on the board. I mean, it's like he didn't even look across the board and see the Baneblade coming at him. But, and he'd been playing for years and that they just didn't stand a chance. And just the cocky arrogance that goes past table banter, like friendly table banter of, you dummy, you're doing something stupid, Everyone can kind of rib their opponent a little bit. It depends. The more you know your opponent, the more you've played with them, the friendlier you are with them. Of course, the more acceptable it is, should we say, to be a little more rude, I guess we could say, with our banter. That's how people are sometimes. You want to rib them a little bit. You want to rib your buddies. No problem with that. But if you really don't know the guy and this is the first time you're playing with him, telling them that everything they decide to do is dumb is not the way to really make friends. So Bob and Fred go first, and Fred takes his Space Marines and he pushes them forward towards certain objectives, while Bob takes his tanks and he kind of flanks around on the enemy forces, Dbag and his partner, because they were viewing the Space Marines as the bigger threat than they were Bob's forces. And between Bob and Fred, they're able to kind of pincer in their opponent in this crossfire, and then Bob takes his Imperial Guard, I almost said National Guard, his Imperial Guardsmen, and puts them on the objective. And even during this process, his opponent is laughing at him going, you're going to try to hold the middle with guardsmen. We're dug in. We're going to punch them right out. They're nothing. They're not going to hold anything. They're worse than squigs, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyone who's played 40K knows that it, comes in phases. Now, I haven't played in a while, but back in the day, you had like your move phase, your shoot phase, then your assault phase, and then like cleanup. I'm assuming it's somewhere still in that ballpark. So let's say that's how the game's played. I wouldn't be surprised if it's still, along those lines. But they change the rules all the time just to get people to buy new damn rule books. Pain in the butt. Anyway, so they get to the shooting phase, and that's when Bob's tanks get to actually, put some rounds down range, and they just go to town on Dbag's forces and his buddy's forces, just lighting up everything he's got across the board because they hadn't put themselves in a good position to kind of block line of sight between Bob's forces and their forces, because they were still, again, viewing the Space Marines as the bigger threat, and they were also happy to go second. Well, between the tanks that Bob had put in a certain position, they pretty much wipe out everything that Dbag's partner had brought to the match. Everything that his tank could see had torn it all up. Blast cannon shots, missiles, bolter rounds, everything tore it up. And even still, D-Bag's being cocky about it, and like, oh, that's a lot of shooting, but don't worry, my guys are fine. I'm still good. I'm still kicking. I'll take you out on my turn. It's not going to be a big deal. And that's when Bob's like, yeah, but my Baneblade hasn't shot yet. It still gets to shoot, and your stuff's the only thing left for it to shoot at. And just tears him up at this point. He was bragging about his well dug in army, and when the dust settled, the only thing that they had left alive was stuff that Bob and Fred couldn't draw a line of sight to. So anything that was actually dug in survived. Everything else they blew right off the board in turn one. Then they go into their assault phase. And at this point, the Marines do what Marines do. They run in, get stuck in, and start, the assault getting melee and pinning down the rest of their forces. At this point, that's where Dbag switches his tune, and he's bitching for the rest of the match about how you only win if you go first, and it doesn't take skill, and you have to be someone who can win if you go second, and everyone else who goes first, they're just losers. So long story short, from what he explained to me, Bob says that the opponent, Dbag, and his guy got to have a small turn, their first turn, where they brought out where they had what they had left, tried to do something with it, didn't really have much going on, and pretty much Bob and Fred wiped out everything they had left at the end of their second turn. In a match that was supposed to take at least 5 turns, they pretty much tabled these guys in turn 2. Now, generally, from the way Bob was explaining to me, he doesn't want to do that to someone. He doesn't want to just beat them down into the ground. But the thing, the reason why he wasn't as upset to Seal Club this guy is evidently this is his behavior pretty much all the time. Some of the other guys that were at the tournament were like, yeah, this is how he plays. He'll play against younger opponents or newer people, and then he's always rude and cocky and telling them they don't know what they're doing. And if he wins, then he brags and goes around talking about how smart he is. And if he happens to lose, it's always some excuse that either he didn't go first, or they were cheating, or they were using some exploit and they don't really know how to play the game. And he was just one of those types of opponents that no one ever wants to play. The one that's a bad winner and a bad loser. But if you do have to play a guy like that, especially at a tournament, you'd rather him be the sore loser than the sore winner, which I could definitely back Bob up on that one. He did tell me he did try to pull a few shady things throughout the tournament, or through their match rather. Stuff like when it came to using some of the special abilities that he wouldn't necessarily call it. Like the way he kind of explained is like he could take damage to have an extra save, but he wouldn't call it when he was supposed to call it, and then try to say later, like, no, I'd actually called that and I do have that save, or I have this. At that point, the match was pretty well set, so he didn't worry about stressing it too much. But Bob did start watching the match a little more closely at that point, because it was kind of obvious that he was kind of trying to tweak the rules a little bit in his favor, if you know what I mean. Now, back when I was playing 40K, this was one of the things that kind of set me off of the game, because you would line up these huge armies, and because it's a I go, you go system, you could have a match like that where one side pretty much wipes out the other side, because especially in 40K, you get some of these weapons that have, their ranges measured in feet, not inches, and they can reach their opponent from anywhere they are on the map. And there's a good chance that a large portion of your forces are wiped out, and then you're trying to fight back. And if they take out your most powerful stuff in the first turn or their first turn, that's not really much of a game after that. So I can kind of understand that principle of it. I think Bob's whole reason for telling me the story was the fact of just the guy's attitude, just the cockiness that he brought into it right there off the bat. And then it persisted until the match was a foregone conclusion. And then at that point, he was full of excuses about how it wasn't his fault that he lost, and it was his opponent's fault that they won because of some BS that they pulled or how they got lucky. And I get what Bob means. People like that aren't exactly people that I want to play with either. I've had similar at some of my tournaments and some of the local games that I've played. There have been people who they would get very, what's the best word to describe this? Unpleasant if they weren't winning the game. And even if it wasn't a league match or a tournament match or anything like that, just for fun game. And if you're just playing the game for fun, don't kill yourself trying to win. Like, if you only have fun when you win at a miniatures game, then you probably shouldn't be playing the miniatures game, or you should be playing solo so you can just cheat to your heart's content, because you're not going to win every one of the games. You have to be a good sport about it. I get it. I don't like losing any more than anyone else does, but you have to be respectable to your opponents. You can't always pitch a fit, pick your stuff up, or flip the desk, or throw the dice or templates or whatever it is just because you lose. You got to be able to take a loss, take the one on the chin, keep your shoulders squared, and keep going. For people like this, though, for opponents like Dbag, there's not really much you can do against them besides just smile and do your best to win the game. So at least you make them the sore loser rather than the sore winner. All right, but I do appreciate Bob messaging me and sending the story in, even though he did keep it vague booked at times to try to make it to where people couldn't figure out who's who. But like I said, my channel's small. I don't think that many people are going to watch it and be able to figure it out. And if Dbag figures out that it is him, like, if you're watching this and you recognize yourself in this, maybe you should think twice about how you're playing. You know what I mean? All right, but that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And like I've said before, if you guys have any of your own stories that you would like to see featured, feel free to send them to the email in the description, and I will try to feature them on the channel. You guys take care. I'll catch you in the next one.